This is the Cool Meanderings with Dr. Germ G podcast. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Cool Meanderings with Dr. Germ G. I'm your host, Dr. Germ G. I'm still an aspiring writer, planning to write some more books, non-academic books that is. And but I'm back for another episode. I would talk a little bit about Daredevil Born Again. Daredevil Born Again was a pretty good show. But for this episode, I think I want to spend a little time focusing on some of the changes that have been happening with education in our country. There's a lot to digest. I think for this episode, I want to focus on some of the changes that I think are affecting international education directly and indirectly. So when I say international education, I'm thinking like, students that may study abroad or may have an interest in studying languages, maybe taking classes in international studies, international business, international affairs, maybe political science, international relations, and definitely thinking of students who come from different countries to study for an undergraduate or graduate degree at a college or university in the United States. We definitely want to include that in the conversation. But also the bigger picture, there are a number of universities that have invested quite a bit in making their overall campus more focused on the international. And they sort of tied it into ideas like inclusion and diversity and equity. And I'm sure by now most people are aware that here in the United States, politically, words like diversity, equity, and inclusion are just not popular anymore. In fact, it's created a problem for any number of institutions that have received federal funding, as the new administration, the Trump administration, has decided that they are not going to fund anything related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether that be at a university level, K through 12 level. Anything that's getting government funding shall not promote what they call DEI. But for international education purposes, diversity and inclusion, equity, definitely have been a part of it for at least the last 5, 6, 7 years. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about where I think things are going. I am not in the trenches. This is just, one person's view. I have done some research on international education. I did my dissertation on a concept called campus internationalization. That was some years ago. But it really just focused on how a university can take all of these different parts and prioritize it as a big part or a major focus of an institution. Anyway, so I think by now most people are aware that the United States Agency for International Development has all but been shuttered. Most of the staff have been notified that they're being let go sometime between July 1st and September 1st. So that means all of the programs, the democracy and governance and peace building programs and all the humanitarian aid programs, all of those things are going away. It also means that means a couple of things. One, people that were aspiring, to work for USAID directly or indirectly, maybe it was a North Star aspiration for a lot of people. That's done now. But it also means that for some, having an opportunity to work for a USAID funded project indirectly through what they call implementing partners, like nonprofits like Save the Children, the International I think they're called the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, FHI 360, organizations like that that have in the past relied heavily on funding from USAID. All of that has gone away. So who knows how those organizations will deal with their staff, how many staff they have to keep, how many they have to let go. But as you can imagine, it's a lot of upheaval. And well, this is important because I know from my experience advising students who were in international studies or international education programs, a lot of them had aspirations to work for the government through the State Department or through USAID, which was an independent agency until a couple of months ago. So yeah, I mean, all of that is gone now. I mean, and maybe some of these nonprofits can survive through other means of funding, private donations, maybe European funding, who knows, Chinese funding, who knows? I mean, the door's open to all kinds of possibilities, right? But for colleges to sell students, to incentivize students to give programs like international education, international studies, international relations a hard look, it becomes more difficult now. It just makes it a lot more difficult. For instance, you have the U.S. Institute of Peace, which had promoted conflict prevention and resolution through research, programs, and trainings. Well, their offices were shut last month in March, and just about all the staff were let go via email one day, like just out of the blue. Everyone's done. Just like that, whether you're in DC or out in the field somewhere doing this important work, you're done. And hey, listen, why all of these changes are happening the way they're happening is a whole different conversation. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, hey, I'm running an academic program in international studies, international development, international education, and I am getting these students excited about how they can take that degree and go work in the field, but that field is on fire right now. It's just, it's been, someone has committed arson and set these fields on fire, and it seems like everything has been decimated. There's very little opportunity. If you wanted to do conflict prevention and resolution through the U.S. government, that seems to, at least for now, that doesn't seem to be an option at the moment. I mean, who knows what the U.S. Department of State will do going forward? I have no idea. I don't know if they have an idea. I mean, this is all like rolling out bits and pieces. And hey, man, I'm just telling you from a perspective of someone that's advising students, at some point you have to say, hey, guys, you're going to have to pivot, get creative here. Some doors have been shut. Maybe, you need to take that degree overseas, teach some English, see what kind of connections you can make in some of these countries where there may be other implementing partners outside of the U.S. government, because unfortunately right now we're just going through lots of changes. And that means that programs that we've relied upon, they're just not available at the moment. Maybe they'll come back in a new form, but at the moment, they're not available. So we've got to pivot somehow. That's what I would be telling students. Hey, and it's a tough thing, especially like, for instance, if you're studying in a private university where, your tuition for your grad program might be $20,000, $30,000 a year. Here you are in the middle of this program with your aspirations to do, I don't know, international work related to women and health, or I don't know, something related to art, something creative, but in an international context, or peace peace studies or conflict resolution. Well, these things they're either under review or just considered to have been unnecessary to continue funding at this point. And that also opens the door to questions about, well, what does that mean for programs like the Fulbright? Will the Fulbright continue to be for a wide variety of programs that students come out of upon graduating? Or will it become more narrow and very specific to security studies or things that are more explicitly tied to U.S. interests, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, but then maybe you lose something by narrowing the focus of some of these programs if you decide to keep them at all. So hey, let's just say, I don't know, but let's just say that the Fulbright becomes a more narrowly focused kind of program. Well, there's some pros and cons to that. If you're not, if you want to be an ambassador for your country, but you don't necessarily want to do so in a field that is explicitly tied to, defense or security or, I don't know, nuclear studies. You might have an interest in music or even pottery, things that may not necessarily speak of cultural exchange on the surface, but when you dig deep, there are lots of ways to promote cultural exchanges that are critical to the bigger picture, which is promoting American values in different parts of the world. But I don't know. These are philosophical, questions that I imagine are being, debated by someone in the government. Whether it's in the Department of State or somewhere in the White House, I have no idea. I imagine that this is happening on some level. I don't know. But, there has to be some discussion, given the decisions to reduce or eliminate some of these programs at such speed. I would assume so, but again, I have no idea. I can just look at it and speculate, right? Just like a lot of people, you can speculate as to what's going on, but who knows, man? Who knows? It's just, all I know is that a lot of the programs that students that I had the pleasure of teaching or advising are now gone. Those programs are gone, or they are reduced to something that is just not even in the realm of viability for employment or career prospects or even service. What's going to happen with programs like Peace Corps? Will Peace Corps survive? Hey man, as a former Peace Corps volunteer, or as we call them, returned Peace Corps volunteers, I sure hope that they figure out a way to keep Peace Corps. Peace Corps is another way that Americans can go abroad and be of service to their country, be global ambassadors. And yeah, sure. Sometimes that can turn into other opportunities. It doesn't necessarily have to be in international development. People can serve in the Peace Corps and come back and do all sorts of things. There are returned Peace Corps volunteers working in all kinds of fields throughout this country and in other countries. CEOs, managers, engineers. So the thing about Peace Corps is that it's really such a broad spectrum of opportunities to share one's skills with countries that invite and embrace Americans to come in and be part of their communities and to contribute, leave something that is lasting and of benefit to that community and to that country. So hopefully hopefully, programs like that don't go away altogether. Or the national programs like AmeriCorps, where, high school graduates, I mean, even college graduates can take some of their skills and be of service to many of our communities here in the United States. I mean, you hope that something like that doesn't go away, but who knows, man? I mean, who knows what the strategy is, what the arguments are in favor or against. And I mean, one would hope that as some of these programs go away, that something new comes in its place that continues to promote American values abroad and at home. I hope. But again, who knows? I mean, I think part of the issue is that it's just this perception of instability and uncertainty that I think has people concerned on many different levels. When it comes to international education, I would say that this is definitely the case because, if there aren't programs available, for instance, programs that will help to fund people's students study abroad opportunities or research abroad opportunities, who's going abroad? Aside from the students that have the disposable income, they come from families where they have the disposable income to pay full price to study abroad. And I hate to generalize, but students in that category are likely to go to more traditional locations like Paris, Florence, Italy, London, which is fine. I think Paris, I've been to Paris. Paris is awesome. London is awesome. I haven't been to Florence, but I've heard really good things about Florence. And those are awesome opportunities. But there are all these other wonderful study abroad opportunities, and some are in what you would maybe consider less popular or non-traditional locations, whether they're in, somewhere in Central or South America, Sub-Saharan Africa, Northern Africa, Southeast Asia. I mean, there are lots of options out there that for study abroad where students can not only experience different cultures, but also experience different learning styles and teaching styles, being in universities and different regions of the world, all of that richness then. And then getting to, in some cases, sit in classes with students that are very competitive, perhaps even more competitive than the students in their home institutions here in the U.S. But, all those opportunities may be at risk because, the priorities are changing, for one reason or another. Government priorities are changing. They often change with new administrations, and this is no different. It's just the changes seem to be quite stark and meaningful in the sense that programs that have been around for a generation are now gone, and potentially pathways for people that study things like, conflict and resolution, or peace and conflict resolution, international studies, international development, international relations. What are these folks going to do? I don't know. Sure, for the creative, industrious person, this is just an opportunity to develop a new way of applying these skills. But for the vast majority that go into these fields thinking that they can maybe have a chance of representing their country through the Department of State or through a agency for international development, or through a nonprofit organization, or through something like an Institute of Peace, where you can do things like support programming or research to promote conflict prevention, peace, resolutions. All that is gone. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So, but that's one big piece of it, of international education or internationalization. Another big piece, perhaps even more significant piece, is the status of international students at U.S. colleges and universities. According to multiple reports, whether it be from the New York Times, New York Magazine, and it's really been picked up in a lot of places, even the Inside of Higher Ed website, which I believe is really chronicling this data, but apparently right now the unofficial count is roughly around 1,500 students and recent graduates that take part of what's called optional, or I think it's called optional practical training, or OPT. Well, apparently these students or recent grads, it's optional practical training. That's right. Okay, so optional practical training, OPT. Apparently these students and recent grads, 1,500 at least or so, have had their visas either canceled, revoked, or changed unexpectedly. And there is some thought that many of these students are targeted because of suspicions of connections to Palestine protest or support of Palestine or other activities that are considered to be promoting anti-Semitism. The problem is that it's unclear how many of these students are actually connected to these things. There's a thought that some of these students or recent grads are being targeted for minor infractions that happened years ago. I mean, things like, traffic tickets and such. I don't know how much of it is found, I don't know how much of it is actually legit in either case. But what I do know is that the very real incidents of students' visas being abruptly canceled or changed on the spot without notification, without due process, without any sense of care or concern for these people as humans, people that have come to our country and contributed their money, their time, their energy. It just creates a really concerning perception. And it's troubling because, sure, the contributions that these students and recent grads make to the economy is very important. I think NAFSA, the Association for International Educators, put out a study that said that, international students, they contribute at least $1 billion annually to the U.S. economy. So that's huge, right? That's huge. It's huge. But I would say beyond that, these are members of communities that contribute to communities in different ways beyond the money. And I just think personally that there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way for our institutions to keep track of students and figure out, who might need to have their visa revoked, and to do so in a fashion that is, that is reasonable. I don't know. It doesn't, and I don't know, and maybe they're not, the institutions that deal with these issues, so I would imagine would include the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. That's what they're called. ICE. Anyway, I think agencies like that are probably more focused on finding who they need to find and, getting them to. I'm not even sure. how or why it's gone down this way. What I think is that it contributes to this perception of instability and uncertainty, which makes visiting and studying in our universities, our colleges and universities, less attractive, which is not a good thing on many levels. Man, I mean, some colleges and universities are probably still thriving, and because they're able to attract international students. They're able to attract, graduate students that are willing to pay full tuition, but also members of the community. I don't know. I'm not sure I don't understand why these processes have to be so abrupt. I'm not sure who is being made safer by doing it this way. And honestly, I doubt that these considerations are even made. It sounds as if, some of these institutions are just focused on getting the bad guys, quote unquote. I don't know. That's the way it looks. I really don't know, but that's just the way it looks. But it's coming at a cost. It's coming at a cost, and it's making the job of international student support offices that much more difficult. I mean, or universities as a whole. I would imagine that universities are doing all that they can to try to reassure their current international students that they support them and that they're willing to do whatever they can to try to make sure that the students are supported, represented, given some sort of due process. But the reality is that there's really only so much that our universities can do. I mean, look at what's happening at Harvard University, our presumably our most prestigious university is at risk of losing over $2 billion in federal funding because it doesn't necessarily want to comply with all of the requests made by the Trump administration. Well, some other universities, from my understanding, were willing to comply, like Columbia University and the University of Pennsylvania. And what that means, what that could mean anyway, for some international students is, well, geez, at the end of the day, there's only so much that my university can do for me. If ICE or any other agency wants to revoke my visa and target me, and well, then maybe my options are to get legal representation, fight, or to just leave. But the bigger issue is that dilemma, that message gets transmitted to other potential international students that may be thinking about coming to study here. Would that discourage them from coming to study here? Would that cause them to consider other countries that aren't necessarily as aggressive with foreign students or international students? I don't know. I mean, there is some talk that applications from international students are down. It's early though, but it's not looking good. So, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Because at the end of the day, if the federal government is not interested in any sort of negotiations with universities when it comes to their international students, if they are just unilaterally taking this approach and just pulling visas without any sort of due process or discussions with universities, there's really is. I don't think there's much that can be done. I mean, again, I don't have all the answers. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. But from what I'm reading and seeing, it seems like a pretty, I wouldn't say insurmountable, but pretty difficult situation. And probably the worst part is that it's happening at a time when so many other things are happening that might get more priority with the public, with the media, with constituents. Unfortunately, this is just my view, but I don't think the average American really understands the benefits of whether it's international students or seeing American students go abroad or Americans working in international development, international relations, foreign aid. I think all of that is, my experience has been that all these things are sort of viewed as novelty, if not unnecessary. And that's unfortunate because, these different avenues of internationalization, I think, contribute greatly to our society. But hey, people like me are not running the government, I think. I mean, I don't know these people personally, but based on what they're projecting, it doesn't sound like internationalization, things like that are their priority. And that's fine. Listen, every government is entitled to run their country the way they want, provided that if they're elected, right? They're elected. That means that people in the country want whatever policies they're offering. And in our case, hey, Mr. Trump won. He won the popular vote in the Electoral College. So a slight majority of people want this. So this is what we're getting. It's just, but it's coming with a cost. And I think a cost is a significant loss of cultural currency, I think, or just a loss of just richness that comes from internationalization, and from whether it's study abroad or students coming to visit our country or people who take their skills and instead of working in the private sector, they give their years, their best years to serving the public good at home and abroad. And to see all of that go away in a matter of weeks and months it's tragic, man. It really is. But what are you going to do? I mean, nothing is forever. So I don't know, if I were working in an international studies office, I would just try to encourage my students to be optimistic, remain hopeful, use history as a guide. There have been moments in history where things changed significantly, and think about what people did during those times. Think about the ways that they pivoted and consider what the opportunities might be today to pivot. And it's easier said than done, and I do not envy the people that have to have those conversations, particularly those that are in very seemingly comfortable positions with tenure or the sense of job security. It's got to be, to try to get people to be optimistic and hopeful when you're in a more comfortable position professionally or even financially. It's tough, man. But, they are looking to you Ms. or Mr. Advisor, Director, Manager, President, Vice President. They're looking to you for hope. They're looking to you for answers. So, you're in that role. That means that you're charged to provide leadership, provide guidance, provide hope. So I wish you the best in doing that. And to those students that are caught in that situation where maybe you're, whether you're on the verge of graduating with your master's in international development, international relations, or international education, your bachelor's in international studies, I want to encourage you to hang in there and keep your eyes open for opportunities, because they're there. They may be a little bit harder to see with the changing landscape, but they are there. Don't lose hope. And, you have each other. Great thing about technology is that it's created opportunity for all kinds of connections between learners here in America and abroad. So there's all kinds of new opportunities out there. And if you're an international student who's had your visa disrupted, or maybe you're just worried about what's happening and you don't feel comfortable, and I hope that you are able to reach out to people on your campus, and hopefully they will reassure you that you're welcome, you're appreciated, you're valued, and that, definitely sympathize and empathize with you, and want to fight for you, and hope that you don't regret being a part of our campus, being a part of our community, because there are people who don't understand your value, don't appreciate your presence, and want to just lazily lump you in with someone who may be a bad apple. Hopefully you international student, you will find some solace through your community, and hopefully we'll get through it, man. I hope so. Yeah. Well, hey, these are tough times, but hopefully we'll get through them together. Yeah. If you're still listening, I just want to say thanks for your listening ear. Thanks for your support. This podcast is around because of your likes, your shares. You can also go on to YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, Dr. Germ G. Please subscribe and check out some of the clips that are there. There are clips from my podcast, but other clips too. In light of what's been happening, I think I'm going to make a few more videos just highlighting some of the themes, whether it's education, but also other topics too. I don't want this channel to, I call it a cool meanderings, because I do really like to veer off into different topics of interest. There's a periphery of things that I'm interested in, but I do like to swerve between. But it's been a while since I've talked about education, and so much has happened. And I wanted to at least take a little bit of time to try to reflect on what's been happening with international education. I don't have all the answers. Very few people do. But I do have hope. I have hope that resolutions can be found that are meaningful for people that want to contribute their skills, their time, their energy to promoting mutual understanding between countries, between communities, through different fields of study, through different mechanisms. I think it's possible, but I don't know. I don't really understand or know what the people that are running the country now, what they want beyond cutting this and cutting that. But I'm not really sure what it is that they actually want, or if they even want anything to do with international education, promoting mutual understanding between countries. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I just don't know. It's not clear to me. It's not clear to a number of people. I don't know. So I guess we just have to wait and see what happens and be ready to pivot and find new ways to contribute. At the end of the day, here in America, we're all Americans. So, we've got to find a way to make it work. We have to find a way. And hopefully we can. I hope so. Well, thanks for listening. And if you have a comment or thought, something on your mind related to some of the topics that I've covered, maybe you're an international student, maybe you're an undergraduate or graduate student that is nervous about graduating and entering a world where international studies, foreign aid, international affairs is viewed differently. Drop me a line at drgermg@coolmeanderings.com. Go to my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, which is at Dr. Germ G. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. I'm out. This is the Cool Meanderings podcast with Dr. Germ G.